What do they do, their profession and stuff?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name
Thank
is
you.
Mohammad Imran. I'm an environmental manager working here in NEOM project.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so anybody else too? Mr. Zishan, Mr. Noman, anybody? So, Mr. Zishan, are you associated with construction field? Right. Mr. Arshad, are you there? Okay. So we have another one joining us, Mr. Asad Malik. Welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself, Mr. Asad?
Yeah, sure. Asad Malik is here from Dubai, UAE. Right now working with China Nuclear as a HSC manager.
Sorry, what? Which manager?
HSC manager.
HSC manager. All right.
I believe it would be better if everybody will introduce himself so that we will get to know each other. Thank you.
I think there was an issue with my audio. Am I audible now?
Yes, you are.
Thank you so much. So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I think I'll have to start over again. So, okay. So, Fire Safety Management Institute presents to you this topic today, which is methods and tools for environmental assessment. And I am Aisha Zajad. So, in today's topic, we will be talking about what is environmental assessment and how different tools and methodologies and procedures can be used for carrying out environmental assessment. So, let's talk about what environmental assessment is in the first place. So we will be talking about what is environmental assessment and what are different tools and methodologies that can be used for that. So let's introduce environmental assessment to see what it is and why do we need to have environmental assessment. Environmental assessment can be called as an activity in which we see and assess and analyze how an activity, which can be a natural activity or it can be a human induced activity, it can be having impacts and harms on the environment. So we can say that environmental assessment is a tool which is helping and assisting policymakers and decision makers and different people to see how it can be a planning and decision making tool. It is a planning and decision making tool that observes and analyzes the impacts and aspects related to different activities, which can be natural as well as human. And it is a process which is used for estimating the impacts of activities of different projects, of developmental projects, of different businesses. For example, we could be building a new dam. So we need to see what are the different impacts of that dam, what impacts in terms of sociological impacts, in terms of environmental impacts it could be having on the people and the environment in general. So we estimate those impacts, we evaluate those impacts, and we predict how these activities that we are having, this project that is going to be started, this business that is going to be incubating, the impacts it will be having in the future. So, environmental assessment is an activity in which we see and assess different impacts. And then, not just that, we don't assess and evaluate those impacts only, we also talk about how those impacts can be reduced. I mean, this is the point of environmental assessment in the first place, that we need to analyze and observe impacts and then tell how these impacts can be reduced. So, because environmental assessment is carried out by an organization or a person or a policy making institute in order to see how we can care for the environment, how we can have better environment, how we can have better social life for all the people, how sustainable development can be promoted for today and for the people to come. So who does environmental assessment, what is environmental assessment, and who carries it out? So environmental assessment is carried out by qualified environmental professionals related to any organization. They should be properly certified. So I hope the definition is clear. We mean that environmental assessment is an activity, it is a tool that assesses the impacts, that estimates and evaluates the impacts related to an activity, and then also aims to reduce those impacts. This is the point of environmental assessment. So, in this picture, we can say that environmental assessment is associated with every single field of environmental assessment. So we say that whenever we have a developmental and a regional development activity, whenever we have an industry coming up, whenever we have new transport activities or an energy project or a new agricultural activity or land use changes happening around us, for all these areas, for all these aspects, the environmental impacts will be measured with the help of environmental assessment. So we say that every single area related to human beings and our lives, urban as well as rural, developmental activities and other projects are measured with the help of environmental assessment to see how these activities could be potentially having impacts on the environment and how these impacts can be reduced and decreased so that environmental quality and sustainable development is promoted and that we could be having better social quality also. So, what are the different methods and tools for environmental assessment? We say we are going to do environmental assessment, but what are the different methods for that? How will that be carried out? So, methods and tools of environmental assessment have been practically divided into three different types. And when we look at these types, all of these are different methods that are used in today's world to manage and mitigate environmental impacts and to make different kinds of reports and notices as to what are the different impacts related to activities. So first of all, when we look at procedural methods and tools of environmental assessment, we say the first one is environmental impact assessment. So this is the most common type. And for that, I think I would want any one of you to tell me, has anybody ever participated in this process of environmental impact assessment in your organization? आप में से किसी पार्टिसिपेंट ने कभी EIA के प्रोसेस में पार्टिसिपेट किया है अपनी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के साथ कभी भी?
No.
No? Okay. So we also had an environmental manager. Sir, did you ever participate in this? Or do maybe you witnessed this? कभी
Not
कोई
yet.
ओके कोई प्रोजेक्ट हो कोई एक्टिविटी हो उसके हवाले से डिड यू एवर ऑब्जर्व एनीबडी डिड यू एवर ऑब्जर्व दैट देयर वाज एन एनवायरमेंटल इम्पैक्ट असेसमेंट हैपनिंग ओके so I think nobody ever participated in this. So, okay, so environmental impact assessment is that in which, again, environmental assessment and impact assessment are two synonymous terms. These are the same. Okay, when we talk about strategic environmental assessment, this is that activity in which we strategically see how environmental impacts are there. And then multi-criteria decision analysis is that kind of an activity in which not just environment but also different kinds of impacts are seen: social, medical, engineering related impacts, impacts on the urban lives, impacts on the conservation of life. And then risk management analysis also talks about different risks associated with developmental activities and other projects. And then we talk about the analytical tools. First of all, we have life cycle assessment, and then we have material flow analysis. So when we talk about life cycle assessment, this is one of those activities in which, for example, we have uh, a comparison between electric vehicles, electric cars, and then we have gasoline cars. So we will be saying how, even starting from their production, their manufacturing in the factory, and then going on throughout their life cycle, how they will be having different impacts on the environment. We will say how a simple vehicle, which is not electrical, after it is produced, it releases this much of pollution, and then after it is discarded, this is the amount of waste that is produced. So the life cycle, the entire life cycle of a product or an activity will be observed to see its impacts. And then material flow analysis, again, for example, there is a battery. We will be seeing how after its production it was having impacts on the environment until it was disposed of and it resulted in waste creation. So all of these different stages or different steps of its life cycle and its material and its production will be seen. Cost benefit analysis, for example, tells how, when we try to reduce the pollution related impacts of an activity, how it will be having benefits for us and for the environment and in terms of sustainable development, and how, when we try to mitigate those impacts, how much cost will we will have to put into it. So all of this will be assessed under the analytical tools for environmental assessment. And then we have aggregated tools and methods. So talking about aggregated tools and methods, these are seeing the ecological footprints or carbon footprints of an activity. So this is a very important term, ecological footprint. It means that a human being or an activity how much resources that activity or that human being or that individual is using. For example, we say how much food is consumed by one human being throughout his entire life, how much energy does that person use, how much waste is produced as a result of different activities that human beings do, and then how a specific activity is having an impact, a burden, an ecological burden on the environment. Ecology stands for environment. So we say that how environment is impacted and what is the burden of that one human being or an activity on the environment. And then talking about carbon footprint, we will see how how much carbon dioxide and other related gases are produced by a human being or a specific activity, due to which carbon dioxide is released, and it is leading to environmental impact, it is leading to environmental greenhouse gas emission and other methods and tools that are used whenever we want to assess environmental impacts. So, when we talk about how are the different steps and different stages that are used for environmental assessment, so this starts first of all whenever we see, for example, somebody comes up with an idea of a business, or some organization or some party comes up with a developmental proposal, and they say that this is the project that we are going to start and we want to submit it here. Then after that, first of all, starts the process of screening. Screening means that it is up to our organization, it is up to see the impacts that that project will be having, and then it is at this specific stage, it is at this screening stage that we will be deciding if we are going to have an environmental assessment or an EIA for this project or not. It is now when we decide if this project is actually there for environmental assessment, do we need to go for EIA or not, and this is when it will be decided. For example, when a party decides that they will be constructing a specific highway over here, we will see the scale of that highway. Is it a small one, is it a huge one, and how it will be having bigger impacts or smaller impacts, what is the type of the highway that will be constructed, and how much land or how much forest, how much trees, how much urban areas will it be impacted, how the people's houses will be impacted. If it is having lesser impact on everybody around us, then I think there will be no EIA for that. So this is at this screening stage that the uh, EIA is decided. So if there is no EIA, the process ends. However, if it is decided that yes, the impacts are huge and EIA needs to be there, after that, the next process starts. First of all, there is the scoping stage. Scoping stage has been called as the most important stage of environmental impact assessment, because this is when we will see different studies and different aspects related to that object, and then we will prioritize and see the different impacts. We will prioritize what are the different issues related to this project and how these issues can be prioritize, which issue is more important, which impact is more important, and how will the EIA be carried out. So in the first screening stage, we saw if we need to have EIA or not. And now in the scoping stage, we will see how the environmental impact assessment will be carried out. Okay. For example, we said that there is going to be a highway constructed in an area. So now in the scoping stage, we will see how we will be focusing more on the air pollution aspect, or we will be focusing more on the land pollution aspect, or we will be focusing on the noise impact. So in the scoping stage, the impacts prioritization will be done, and it will be seen how and through which methodology we will be going to have our EIA. In the third process, which is impact prediction. So after screening and scoping, we have impact prediction, in which we will see whether this specific activity will cause health related issues, or it will be causing impacts on the biodiversity or the presence of animals, or it will be harming the habitat of animals, or it will be having deforestation. So impacts will be predicted for the relevant authorities. And then after impact prediction, we will see how these impacts can be evaluated, different impacts that we have considered, they will be described, their seriousness will be described, and then their impact on the future will be described, evaluated, and analyzed. After these impacts have been predicted and analyzed, then now comes the mitigation stage. Mitigation stage is extremely important because this is where we will be telling the authorities, we will be telling the specific party that has been associated with us and has been proposing this developmental project, how these impacts that we have predicted can be mitigated, and how these impacts can be remedied and removed and reduced, and how they should be doing this. After that, an EIA report is produced, which will be provided, which will be provided to those parties, those developmental projects, and those businesses, to tell how their activity is harmful and how it needs to be reduced. The impacts can be reduced. After this, the EIA report will be reviewed, to see how this activity has been enough. It has been adequate. The amount of environmental assessment that we did was adequate. Was it good? Was it not? After that, the decision making will be finally done, and notice will be issued to tell if this activity is allowed or not. And then it is also very important that throughout this process of EIA, the public needs to be involved. We need to consult and we need to have public participation. It is very important that even starting from the scoping stage, the people related to the project, the community that is involved, the people who will be impacted by this project, who are directly related to the project. For example, when there is a highway going on, and people will have their houses around the highway, how their houses will be destroyed, what are the impacts on those people directly in terms of the noise pollution for them, the air pollution for them, the land pollution for the land issues for them, and then how their houses will be destroyed. So we need to have public on board throughout this EIA process until the monitoring is done. In the last stage, which is monitoring, it will be seen if the notice that we issued, if the decision that we issued will is being followed or not. So when we talk about environmental assessment, we say that we have EIAs and environmental assessment going on in our lives around us all the time. So this will be an example of how an EIA was done in Pakistan, in Lahore. So we had Metrobus and Orange Line train proposal. So it was said that it was having a lot of impacts on the people of Lahore. It was having air pollution impacts, noise impacts, traffic congestion. It was said that because of the construction of Metrobus and Orange Line, even more traffic congestion will happen. And then conservational issues. For example, there were many architectural buildings in the pathway of these. However, the conservational impacts was not considered, and that it was also going to have urban issues. So there were many issues, environmental as well as physical hazards that were shown related to Metrobus and Orange Line. But guess what? In Pakistan, because whenever a project is backed by a strong party, it is going to happen no matter what. So guess what? We have Metrobus and Orange Line operational today, even when it has so many impacts on the environment. So also, it is a surprising fact how a fake public hearing was conducted for this Metrobus, and it was said that that people and the community related to this area, related to Lahore, is like okay with this project, and then okay, this project is fine, and we will be carrying out this activity. Now, any example that anybody would like to share? For example, have you ever heard of how environmental impact assessment of a project was done, and then this project was stopped, or maybe this project was continued? Do you guys have any example, just like the one that I shared of Metrobus?
Yes, actually, here in Neom, actually, there are some cities, there are some localities already existing localities were there in Albada and Sharma. Now, Neom is going to demolish all those areas. So, due to public interest, they were raising some issues. But at the moment now, we
Okay.
have not, means to say, we have not listened them all, and now we are going to remove them all from Neom.
Okay. So the public was not included in the process.
Yes, actually, public was included, but we didn't
Okay.
put our ears on the suggestion of the public. We just forced them.
Yeah, it was like it was a useless process, including the public. There was no use of it. Okay, I think this is like this happens
Yeah.
everywhere. This is the way, especially in Pakistan and so many
Yes.
other countries of
Yes.
the world also. And any other
Yes.
example?
Everywhere it is.
Yes, true, very true. And this is very unfortunate also. I have an example. For example, we have Giga Mall on GT Road, Pindi. So I think it an EIA was also done for it. For I mean, EIAs done for almost every activity, every project. But for a Giga Mall, I mean, there were many aspects that were not very helpful and very nice for the environment. But then it was constructed, and now we're also going to have an extension of it. So no matter what happens, you know, developmental projects are going to be there. So we're going to turn our cities into concrete jungles, no matter how much harmful they are for us. So anybody else, please share some example that you have. I mean, it will be nice listening to, I mean, your experiences, personal experiences. Please, Mr. Junaid Fida.
Yeah, we were actually doing, we are actually doing one of the solar projects. Just in the midway of the project, the supply of the solar PV module, it got halted, and it badly
Okay.
impacted the project progress. But when we reached out to the client and consultant that what actually went wrong, why we are not receiving the adequate number of PV modules and the associated accessories for this installation of the solar. Then they told us in China, because China is
Acha.
now in the process of transition from traditional sources of energy to more renewable energy. So they were heavily relied on the coal-based energy project. So they stopped all those projects. So in that process of transition, actually, what happened is that the production got delayed and pieces of the module as well. But this is what I heard back in 2021 and 2022 that just because of environmental concern for the China.
Okay. Okay. Exactly. That's a nice example.
And it
So,
affected the whole
okay.
world wherever solar projects.
That's right. Thank you so much for contributing. So somebody else also, please, अगर आप उर्दू में बात करना चाहें, it's completely normal and fine. आप भी बताएं कोई ऐसी एग्जांपल कि आपने कोई प्रोजेक्ट देखा कि जिसके हवाले से EIA हुआ और उस प्रोजेक्ट के बारे में इतना कोई अच्छे it was eventually, completed regardless of the EIA. We have Mr. Khalil Nazar. Sir, Assalamu alaikum. Would you like to contribute?
इसके अलावा एक और एग्जांपल भी है, सी पैक की एग्जांपल है। मुल्तान से
हाँ
आगे जब
जी।
सक्खर की तरफ जाते हैं तो सी पैक में रास्ते
Okay.
में बहुत ज़्यादा बागात थे हमारे अपने इलाके में। बहुत ज़्यादा
हम्म।
मिकदार में वहाँ पे आमों के बागात वगैरह थे। EIA जब कंडक्ट किया था वहाँ पे, जब पब्लिक से पूछा गया तो उन्होंने अलाउ नहीं किया था, लेकिन फोर्सफुली उन
अच्छा।
सब के बागात को काट कर वहाँ से सी पैक जो है वो निकाली गई थी।
बिल्कुल सही। और ये
सी
ऐसा
पैक
ही होता है,
कंस्ट्रक्ट
इट हैपेंस एवरीवेयर। बस उनको हेवीली पे कर दिया जाता है एट सम प्लेसेस कि जी आपको पेमेंट मिल जाएगी, आप बस आपको यू विल हैव टू एग्री टू दिस। ऐसा होता है। फॉर एग्जांपल माय मैटरनल फैमिली इज फ्रॉम फैसलाबाद। वहां पर बिल्कुल fields के दरमियान में से the motorway project was going to be constructed. So उससे नहीं agree कर रहे थे people, of course, उन लोगों की they have this relationship with their fields and their crops and stuff. लेकिन वो काफी लोग, क्योंकि हालांकि वो depend भी नहीं चीजों पे करते हैं अपनी crops पे, उनके जो बागात हैं, उनकी जो फसलें हैं, लेकिन फिर भी उनको जबरदस्ती forcefully it was constructed. So Tariq, yes, please. Thank you for raising your hand, sir. Please go ahead.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम।
वालेकुम अस्सलाम।
मारुत, मैं असल में सिर्फ सुन ही सक रहा था अभी, तो अब मुझे जरा वो बोलने का वो मिला है।
जी सर।
कुछ सिस्टम जो है ना सेटअप करने में। अच्छा, ये पाकिस्तान में तो ये है, पाकिस्तान जैसा मुल्क है ना, अब जैसे हमारे दोस्त ने जो है बताया इसका सीपैक का।
हाँ जी।
अभी रिसेंटली डीएचए बन रहा है मुल्तान में, जहाँ पे अच्छा हमारा आम जो है वो बेहतरीन किस्म का आम है, और जो है बागात काट के तो डीएचए वगैरह में शामिल किए गए हैं, तो ये सब कुछ हो ही रहा होता है।
बिल्कुल सही बात है।
सस्टेनेबिलिटी में और एनवायरनमेंट में एक टर्म है जिसको ग्रीन वॉशिंग कहते हैं। ग्रीन
अच्छा।
वॉशिंग ये है कि आप जो है ना वो सरफेस पे सब लोगों को बता रहे होते हैं कि यार हम हेल्थ एंड सेफ्टी का भी ख्याल रख रहे हैं, एनवायरनमेंट का भी ख्याल रख रहे हैं, और सस्टेनेबिलिटी का भी ख्याल रख रहे हैं, और लेकिन आप रख नहीं रहे होते। मैं
एक्चुअली
रिसेंटली
यस।
यहाँ सऊदी अरब में 3 दिन पहले जो है एक प्रोजेक्ट है रेड सी का, जो यहाँ पे साथी हैं, वहाँ गया था। तो कुछ काम के सिलसिले में तो मुझे इत्तेफाक हुआ उसमें अंदर जाने का। अब यहाँ पे इन्होंने नियम वाले जो है ये बता सकते हैं कि अब ऑफिशियल्स के अलावा ये जाने नहीं देते अनलेस अवाम के लिए इन्होंने बहुत सारे प्रोजेक्ट्स पे रास्ते बंद कर दिए हैं, आप वहां से गुजर भी नहीं सकते। तो वहां पे जो है वो एक आइलैंड बन रहा है, वो छोटा सा आइलैंड था और उन्होंने उसको एक्सटेंड किया है। और आप हैरान होंगे कि अच्छा, मैं यहाँ पे डाइविंग करता रहा हूँ, तो मैं तकरीबन 5 साल रेड सी में डाइविंग की है मैंने, तो मुझे पता है इसकी रेत कैसी है। तो वहां पे बिल्कुल सफेद रेत पड़ी हुई थी, सफेद रेत, वो
अच्छा।
वैसी जैसे मालदीव्स में है या मॉरिशस के जो साहिल हैं वहां पर है। तो वो सयाहों को बड़ा अट्रैक्ट करती है, बड़ा खूबसूरत लगती है। पानी बिल्कुल आपका नीला लगता है, ऐसा कि बस आप बयान से बाहर। रेड सी इटसेल्फ बहुत खूबसूरत है, लेकिन उन्होंने उसमें मजीद इजाफा करने के लिए जो है वहां पे सारे साहिल पर जो उन्होंने ड्रेजिंग की है या उसके अलावा उसमें जो फिल किया है उसको एक्सटेंड करने के लिए जजीरे को, और उसमें जो उन्होंने सफेद रेत डाली है ना, ये अगेन इट्स अगेंस्ट द इन्वायरमेंट। अब वहाँ का जो जो फ्लोरा है या फाना है वो इससे यकीनन डिस्टर्ब होगा, वहाँ की जो जो मरीन लाइफ है
डेफिनेटली।
वो इससे डिस्टर्ब होगी, क्योंकि वो इसके आदी नहीं है, लेकिन इन्होंने किया है। और ये ग्रीन वॉशिंग मतलब इस वक्त कम से कम इधर हमारे वाले साइड पे तो बहुत चल रही है, यानी ये अरब ममालिक हो गए या पाकिस्तान हो गया, हो सकता है यूरोप वगैरह में भी होती हो, लेकिन इतनी नहीं हो सकती जितनी यहाँ पर हो रही है या पाकिस्तान में हो रही है। तो ये सब चल रहा है और हर जगह है ये। प्लीज।
बिल्कुल सही है। हम लोग से वजह से कि पाकिस्तान में है, वो हर जगह है, बिकॉज द बिगेस्ट प्रायोरिटी दैट वी हैव नाउअडेज इज डेवलपमेंट। सो डेफिनेटली एनवायरनमेंट तो बेचारी बैक हैंड पे चली जाती। जी सर जुनेद प्लीज।
ये जितनी भी एग्जांपल्स दी इनमें से यूरोप में या डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज़ में अब ये हो रहा है कि वहाँ पे जितनी भी इन्वायरमेंटल प्रोटेक्शन एजेंसीज हैं, तो वहाँ पे अब आप कोई नई इंडस्ट्री या कोई नई हाउसिंग सोसाइटी कोई इस तरह के प्रोजेक्ट नहीं एग्जीक्यूट कर सकते। तो क्योंकि वो कंसर्न हैं कि उनकी जो एक्टिविटीज़ हैं उससे इन्वायरमेंट आई मीन के एयर पोल्यूशन, लैंड पोल्यूशन, वाटर पोल्यूशन का पोटेंशियल होता है। लेकिन उसके पैरेलली हो क्या रहा है कि वहाँ पे क्राइसिस जनरेट हो रहा है कि लोगों के पास रहने की जगह नहीं है, आबादी बढ़ रही है लेकिन वो घर नहीं बना पा रहे क्योंकि इन्वायरमेंटल एजेंसीज इन्वॉल्व हैं, और वहाँ पे किसी भी ऐसी जगह पे जहाँ पे भी उनको लगता है कि किसी भी तरह से इन्वायरमेंट जो है वो डिस्टर्ब हो सकता है, तो वो उनको नहीं परमिशन देते। तो अगर ये एक तरफ से तो ठीक है, ये इन्वायरमेंट को हम बचा रहे हैं, लेकिन दूसरी तरफ जो रिक्वायरमेंट्स हैं मतलब लाइफ गुजारने के लिए, जिस तरह ये क्राइसिस, एक क्राइसिस से बचने के लिए दूसरा क्राइसिस हो रहा है, तो इसको कैसे अवॉइड करेंगे?
अच्छा,
मसला तारिक।
मैं जुनैद साहब, मैं कुछ जी मैं इस पे एक छोटा सा आपको वो मेरा एक कजन है कनाडा में है, वो कहता है आपकी जमीन है और आप जो है ना उस पे आप अपना घर नहीं बना सकते जब तक आप जो है ना आपको तमाम यूटिलिटी कंपनियां जो है वो इजाजत ना दे दें। मसलन टेलीफोन वाला, बिजली वाला और इस वाला पानी वाला, और उसमें भी फिर आपको जो है ना वो जो पुलिस है और जो बाकी जो लाइफ सेविंग है, जैसे जैसे ये सिविल डिफेंस वाले हैं, फायर फाइटिंग वाले, ये सारे आपके पास अगर वो नहीं आ सकते, इनको पता लगे कि आप आबादी से दूर अपनी जगह पर बना रहे हैं, जैसे हम पाकिस्तान में होता है, वहां मेरी जमीन है, मैंने अपना जो है ना वो फार्म हाउस बना दिया और सब कुछ, वहां पे ऐसा कुछ नहीं है। आप बिल्कुल ठीक कह रहे हैं। अच्छा, यूरोप में एक और चीज जो मैं अभी पिछले दिनों पढ़ रहा था, वो इनके जो किसान है वो एहतजाज कर रहे हैं। गवर्नमेंट ने उस पे ये एजेंसीज जो है, इन्होंने एनवायरमेंट प्रोटेक्शन एजेंसीज जो है, इन्होंने सर्टन टाइप ऑफ पेस्टिसाइड्स और जो यूरियाज वगैरह हैं उन पर जो है वो लगा दी है, पाबंदी लगा दी है। अब उसका इम्पैक्ट ये हुआ है कि उनकी जो ज़राअत है वो मुश्किल हो गई है। डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज में आप बिल्कुल ठीक कह रहे हैं कि काम हो रहा है और बहुत अच्छे से हो रहा है। इवन इंडिया जो है वो इस पे बहुत सारा काम कर रहा है, लेकिन उसमें भी बहुत सारी जगहों पर जो है ना वो जो टर्म मैंने आपके सामने अभी रखी थी, ग्रीन वॉशिंग, वो बहुत ज्यादा हो रही है। हमने मिलियन ट्री लगाए थे। आप यकीन नहीं करेंगे कि पाकिस्तान का ये प्रोजेक्ट जो है बहुत सारे इंटरनेशनल फोरम्स पर जो है शोकेस हुआ है। लेकिन मामला ये है कि अब हमारा जो है ना, मेरे मामला ये है कि मेरे गांव में फर्ज करें 10,000 पौधे लगे थे उसी मिलियन ट्री या बिलियन ट्री सुनामी के, तो वो बाज लोगों ने जो है ना वो सियासी चपकलिश में भी निकाल दिए हैं। यानी एक तो होता है ना कि यार मेरी जमीन में लगे तो नुकसान कर रहे थे, दरख्त कहाँ नुकसान करता है, लेकिन सिर्फ इसलिए कि वो एक खास पार्टी ने लगाए थे तो दूसरी पार्टी के लोगों ने जो है ना वो उसको वो निकाल दिया। तो ये सारी चीजें साथ साथ चल रही हैं। आपकी बात बिल्कुल ठीक है, आपकी ऑब्जर्वेशन अच्छी है इस मामले में।
सही। चलें, कोई और भी अगर कंट्रीब्यूट करना चाहे। दिस इज वन ऑफ द मोस्ट पेनफुल एस्पेक्ट्स। जब भी हम किसी भी इन्वायरमेंट के हवाले से एस्पेक्ट की बात करते हैं तो काफी अनफॉर्चुनेट सर्कमस्टांसेस बंदा सोचता है इस हवाले से। सो somebody else please. All right, so I think let's conclude the session. And I think I would like to say one specific thing कि जब तक fairness नहीं है on an individual level, also on policy making level, on government level, किसी भी level पे जब तक fair नहीं है, I think we wouldn't be able to care for the environment, in any capacity. जब तक कि हम इस चीज के हवाले से अपनी 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 goals में, objectives में fair नहीं है और अपनी moral basis नहीं है लेके चले, तो I don't think this will be possible in any way. Thank you so much everybody for attending. It was very nice interacting with you. Guys, अच्छा लगता है when everybody else also participates. So by this we come to the end of the session. This is Aisha Sajjad. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.